Hello. The Divine Code reading for March 23rd, pages 579 and 580. Topic number, we're in the chapter, The Prohibition of Theft. Topic number 11. There is no difference between robbery or theft that is committed against an individual, a community, or partners who share possessions. Even if a person stole something whose value was less than a pruta from a communal fund or from communal possessions, he is still considered a thief, and he is liable to capital punishment for the theft. So it doesn't matter the type of individual, the type of corporation that's being robbed, product is being stolen from. It can be an individual, just somebody. It can be a corporation. It can be a community. If somebody steals something from the public library, he sticks a book underneath his jacket and he walks out with it, that would be considered theft. Or if it's done through, the partnership would be like a corporation. We're not allowed to say, well, we're allowed to steal from these people. We're not allowed to. We have to follow whatever the rules are concerning the items in whatever situation. If the person takes the book with the, checks it out properly, then he's allowed to take the book out of the library. If he sticks it in his backpack and walks out and clandestinely, that would be considered theft. Even if the person stole something whose value is less than a pruta from a communal fund or for communal possessions, he is still considered a thief, and he is liable to capital punishment for the theft. So even there's within Jewish law, okay, there in either non-Jewish or Jewish law, in either way, in order for something to have value, it has to be something that's considered to have value in order for it to be theft. And within Jewish law, what is considered value in Torah law for the Jewish people, and I'm not sure if this is through a Torah law or through the rabbinic setting up the rules, but the pruta, which is like the least valued coin in circulation, is considered the threshold as to whether or not it's considered a value within Jewish law. For non-Jewish law, we don't have a set amount. It depends on the individuals, specifically the individuals that are being robbed and are having the theft occur to, or perhaps the thief itself, whether or not it's considered a value. So something that's a sliver of wood out of a crate would not be considered something that has value. If it's a sliver of wood out of a mahogany desk, it might be considered something to have value. So there's variables involved, and there's no set amount, although the community probably would have a set amount that they would consider significant enough to be taken seriously. But within Torah law, there's no set amount for non-Jews. It's more of a case-by-case or community-by-community determination. So it could be less than a pruta, which would be like, if it's half a penny, it might be considered significant enough to be taken seriously. Anyone who benefits from communal funds or from service provided by an individual or group of people for which a fee is legally charged without paying the money that is due according to the law has committed a withholding of due payment. Examples are one who withholds his employee's wages, or one who refuses to repay a debt, or one who rides a public bus or a private taxi and then does not pay. The status of a person who does this is like that of a thief, and will be explained in chapter 12. So this will go into more detail further on in this unit. Right now we're in the overview of the unit Prohibition of Theft, and this is a chapter called the Prohibition of Theft. It's the overview for what we're going to go into more detail down the road. But basically, if a person withholds money that's due, he took a cab, and then at the end of the ride, he said, "Thank you very much." He walks away without paying. How is that handled? And it's considered in the category of theft, but how exactly is it considered theft? Or is it exactly theft, or is it something similar to theft that's handled in a different way? So that'll be discussed further. Topic number 12. When a person enters another's property to steal, the point in time in which it is considered a robber or thief is the moment in which he raises the object he is stealing, or when he draws the object to himself by some other means and removes it from the property, or property of the object's owner, whether the thief brings it into his own adjacent property or into the public domain or into another person's private property. Shokanor Koshan Mishpat, chapters 348 and 351, Biur Hagra 348-4 explains regarding the Shokanor regarding that Shokanor, that when a thief drags an object to anywhere outside the owner's property, the act of theft is considered to have been committed, even though he did not raise up the item. So there's different rules of what's considered acquiring an object. When the thief acquires the object, that is when the activity of theft is considered to have occurred. So if the thief is just walking around the person's front yard carrying a guard, or not really carrying, but I guess if he carries it means he lifted it up, therefore he's taking possession of it. If he's kicking it around the front yard, it's considered annoying. It's considered possibly vandalism, but it's not considered theft unless the person does something that would be considered acquiring it. So if he pushes the garden gnome out into the street, or if he picks up the garden gnome and starts carrying it around, or if he takes the garden gnome and puts it in his backpack, any of these things are considered acquiring an item. And then at that point that the thief does it, it's considered theft. Until that is done, it's not considered theft. It's just considered an annoyance or perhaps vandalism. Therefore, if one only drags an object within the owner's property from one place to another, but does not remove it from the owner's property, and does not raise it or set it inside his vessel, he is still not guilty of theft, and he is not liable to capital punishment. So if the person is just kicking the garden gnome around the front yard, but it doesn't leave the front yard, or doesn't go inside of his backpack, or does not he does not lift it up, then it's not, he did not acquire the object, and therefore it would not be considered theft. And these rules considered acquisition is detailed in it's explained in great detail within the Torah laws. Topic number 13. The above law refers to a situation in which the thief stole an item from the owner's property, or if he stole an item that its owner had placed in the property of a third person. Even if someone placed a belonging in the property of another person without that property owner's permission, it is nevertheless forbidden for the owner of the property to steal the object. And that will be explained more fully in chapter 4. It is unclear if this type of theft makes a Gentile thief liable to capital punishment, since the property owner is just taking the object that was placed on his property without his permission. It seems that this can be compared to one who raises a lost object with the intention to steal it, for which the Gentile is exempt from punishment, as explained in footnote 504, and that 504 is a typo, but is probably in a future footnote. Since it does not come into his hand through sin. Likewise, in this case, it is permissible for a Gentile to raise an object in order to remove it from his property. So, it becomes complicated if the object that's being possibly stolen is on another person's yard. The owner of the garden gnome places his garden gnome in his neighbor's yard because he's cutting the grass, and then he forgets to take it back. The neighbor didn't give him permission to put it in his yard. So if someone comes along and takes the garden gnome that's in the neighbor's yard, if the thief does any of the actions of acquisition, particularly if he takes it out of the domain of the neighbor's yard, and I would assume not into the owner's yard, but it takes it somewhere else, or if he places it in his backpack, or if he just lifts it up, then it's still considered theft. If the neighbor is annoyed that the garden gnome was placed in his yard, it's like, what's this thing doing here? The neighbor still has to treat it as the property of the owner, and he cannot take it himself. He can't just take it and say, "Oh, this is interesting. I'll put it in my garage sale I'm having next week." No, he can't do that. It doesn't belong to him. It belongs to his next door neighbor who placed it in his yard for whatever reason, and he has to treat it with respect. He has to respect his neighbor's property. So he'd have to return it. He cannot acquire it. The neighbor who has the object in his front yard, inadvertently placed in his front yard, cannot just take it for himself. And a thief cannot take it. And what we're seeing here in this footnote, alluding to another footnote, we'll figure out what 504 refers to, would have to be, in order for it to be a capital offense, it would have to be acquired either by taking it into one's vessel, like a backpack or some other vessel to carry something, or to take it out of the domain that it's in. And if it's just simply picked up, even if it's picked up with the intention of stealing, that would not be considered a capital offense. It's still considered theft, but it's not a capital offense of theft, according to this the footnote that is somehow related to the number 504. However, one who robs or steals from another in a street or in any public place that is not owned by the private property is considered a thief from the moment he takes the object from the victim or from the victim's container and carries it away from the victim or places it in his pocket or inside his own container. See Encyclopedia Talmudica, volume 5, page 459, and responsa of Maharit Choshan Mishpat, chapter 88, that one is not considered a thief in Torah law until he makes an acquisition of a stolen object. So let's say it's not in the person's front yard. He grabs something from the person. He takes possession of something in a public area, or I'll assume even within somebody else's private area. But he steals from a person, and then as soon as he does the act of acquisition, that's considered theft, even if he's in someone else's domain or he's in a public domain. Topic number 14. If two accomplices robbed or stole, either by taking a belonging or by kidnapping a person, they are both guilty in the manner similar to that which is explained regarding accomplices to murder. That was in the unit on murder, chapter 1. And also chapter 3 in this unit will go into more detail of partner, people that are committing a crime as a partner, such as murder or theft. And the laws of murder in this regard is very complicated. And I would assume that in chapter 3, the laws of theft would probably be equally complicated as to who did what within the partnership. Topic number 15. The laws of theft apply equally to men and women. And this is clearly the law regarding a Gentile as seen in Tractate Sanhedrin 57. It is likewise written by Rambam in the Laws of Theft 1:7 that for Jews, a woman is equally liable for theft as a man. Thank you.